Hello! This is the first in a series of slide presentations on distribution and protein binding. This serves as the introduction, so we're going to go ahead and talk about all the stuff we have going on with the volume of distribution and protein binding and pharmacokinetics. Our objectives for this group of discussions are: first, to be able to list the three different volumes of distribution that we are going to be talking about and how they are used. The three are central volume of distribution, apparent volume of distribution, and volume of distribution at steady state. Secondly, I'd like you to be able to list the factors that determine volume of distribution. So we know that volume of distribution is a determinant of elimination rate constant and half-life, but what determines volume of distribution? List the determinants of plasma protein binding. I'll let you in on a secret. Some of the major determinants of volume of distribution are plasma protein binding to both tissues and to plasma proteins. Fourth, I want you to be able to predict the effects of altered plasma and tissue protein binding and the volume changes that occur due to those changes in plasma and protein binding on the pharmacokinetic parameters of drugs. So we're digging down several layers here. You know that volume distribution has an effect on half-life and K. And I've told you that volume distribution affects plasma protein, is affected by changes in plasma and tissue protein binding. So then we're going to learn what things determine plasma and tissue protein binding. And finally, we're going to determine how these alterations in volume and or plasma protein binding affect the need for any dosing regimen alterations. So we're digging down a couple of layers here. So why do we care? Because first of all, volume of distribution describes where the drug goes, and maybe in some cases, more importantly, where it doesn't go. So is it bound to fat? Is it bound to bone? Is it going to be able to go where the drug needs to go to have its effect? If you are treating a person with epilepsy, is the drug able to pass through the blood-brain barrier in order to get to the site of action in the CNS? Secondly, it is one of the determinants, as you know, that determines how long a drug remains in the body. It is one of the determinants of K and half-life. The larger the volume of distribution, the longer the drug will be hanging out in the body. The longer the half-life, the slower the elimination rate constant. Now we're going to talk about both the rate and the distribution the rate of distribution and the extent of distribution of drugs in the body. So the rate of distribution will determine how long it takes for the drug to reach the desired tissues and cause the desired effect. So it's going to have a big determinant on the time of onset of the drug. The extent of distribution is going to tell us how extensively the drug penetrates the different tissues in the body. So we're going to look at both the rate and extent of distribution in the body. First, by looking at the rate of distribution in the body, we're going to look at how drugs are transported through a membrane, and we're also going to look at how they are transported to an organ. And then we're going to go into extent of distribution. So here's where we get into our three volumes of distribution: central volume of distribution, apparent volume of distribution, and steady state volume of distribution at steady state. Those are our three volumes that you are going to be needing to understand. And then, of course, we know, I've spilled the beans, protein binding is what is the most important determinant of volume of distribution. So we're going to talk about what determines protein binding. We're going to talk about drugs and diseases that might alter protein binding, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we measure protein binding. That's it. On to part 2. Thanks.